Alright everybody, time for the fourth and final part of the shadow cards. Let's do this. Okay, so first we have Mazak, the Waking Terror. Card seems kind of interesting. On the surface, triple shadow is quite restrictive, but a 6/4 flyer for 4 is really nice. Having to sacrifice a unit on summon can be pretty problematic, unless you set your deck up well enough for that. The main issue is that 4 health makes it kind of bad at blocking the turn it comes down, and also vulnerable to cards like Auric Runehammer, which is still a really powerful card around. So that's a big problem, especially if you basically get like 3-for-1 by the Runehammer, killing the Mazak and the unit that you sacrificed and leaving them with a Runehammer. That's really risky. Sure, the ultimate, paying 6 to steal an enemy unit with less health than Mazak, can make up for that later, for the unit that you had to sacrifice, especially if it was like a Dark Wisp or Slumbering Stone or something. But yeah, the card is pretty high risk, but potentially fairly high reward. So it's an interesting card to keep in mind, but more likely than not, it will just end up being left by the wayside because it's a bit outperformed by some more consistent and less risky 4-drops like Impending Doom, for example, which is kind of like similar to this. In Limited, however, this is a powerhouse, easy slam dunk. Next we have Shadow Stalker, another like limited only card. It's a 4-power 3/3 with Nightfall. Nightfall is only on tribute though, so that's even worse, and it's unblockable at night. So even in Limited, this is not a great card really. The Nightfall isn't guaranteed, and Nightfall isn't great either, and then all you get is a 4-power 3/3 unblockable, which is also not great. So seems like an okay filler maybe in a Nightfall heavy, or like a good card in a Nightfall heavy limited deck, and outside of that like a bad filler. Then we have Soulbringer. This is one of the more powerful cards for a potential Radiant Wisp deck. On summon you get to play a Wisp from your Void, and with Tribute you even get 2 Wisps instead. And yeah, a 4-power 4/3 as a base body is not particularly great, but getting back a Wisp or 2 really makes up for that. And in Limited, in a Radiant Wisp themed deck, this is another super amazing card for sure. Next we have Transmogrifier. Once per turn you may pay 2 to give one of your units +3/-2 permanently. So yeah, not a constructed card at all, and even in Limited I think this is pretty bad. It's very expensive, very slow, and you basically need like low attack, high health units to make this worthwhile on like some of the high health, low attack flyers and stuff. So yeah, I wouldn't even want this in my Limited deck really. Then we have Vile Vermint, another limited only card. We get a 4-power 1/1 flying deadly with Nightfall. Not great, but it's a flyer, so it can deal with other opposing annoying flyers and is a decent defensive unit basically. Next we have Betray the Cause, basically Madness with Warp for 2 power more, and that's really bad in Constructed. This is unplayable, and even in Limited this is really bad if you ask me, so stay away from it. Then we have Grimy Alp Luatra. What a name, wow. 5-power 4/3, new unit type, Sprite. Once per turn you may pay 2, or actually it's probably not a new unit type. I guess Ice Sprite also is a Sprite, but I never noticed. Maybe they also changed the unit type, maybe it had a different unit type and they introduced the unit type Sprite, I'm not 100% sure. And yeah, once per turn you may pay 2 to give Grimy flying this turn, and it deals 1 damage to you, so pretty bad card. Even in Limited it's not great, but it's at least decent since it can just help you attack in the air when the ground is stalled out. But costing 2 and 1 health to give this flying for a 5-power 4/3 is really nothing great even in Limited. Then we have Lethrite Blade Whirl, another bad elf. Even in Limited, summon, give one of your other units +3 attack while you have Lethrite Blade Whirl. Guy is really fragile, so basically if you don't want to use the summon effect, you cannot really attack or block with this because it doesn't survive anything. But giving a flyer +3 attack while also providing a potential body that you can trade if you have to, or attack on an empty board, can be nice. So in Limited it seems like an okay card, not a great card, but an okay card. Then we have the End is Near. discard the top 10 power cards from your deck, basically making sure you don't draw power anymore for the next, I don't know how many turns, probably the rest of the game, and also get power into your void for cards like Hourglass or Forgotten Find. But 5 power is a lot for an effect like this that doesn't even impact the board and is incremental and speculative. So maybe there is some way to abuse it in Constructed, but other than that, the card's really bad in both formats. But yeah, next we have Cut Ties. Basically just a bad Death Strike for limited to have some more removal options. 6 is a lot for removal, but if you need to kill that bomb that's killing you, anything does really. Then we have End of the Line, another card that's basically only useful in limited. In limited it's decent. Lifesteal and Warp, you get to deal 3 damage to 2 enemies, and with Tribute you get to deal 4 instead. Even in limited this is not great, but it's at least decent and can be pretty swingy and powerful, while in Constructed it's just really bad. And last but not least we have Umbran Occluder, 8 cost 7/7, flying in ambush, and with Tribute the enemy player discards the top 3 cards of their deck. So you can, for example, block on the enemy turn, jump block or trade block, and then at the end of turn ambush this to get the Tribute. It's a lot easier to activate Tribute with ambush. And yeah, then you mill the opponent for 13 cards. But yeah, that's not a particularly helpful effect. An 8 power 7/7 flying is also not that great. And yeah, mill decks won't really be a thing realistically, so this card is pretty bad and Constructed. But in limited, if you're looking to put an 8-drop in your deck, this is a pretty good 8-drop. 7/7 flying ambush for 8. Pretty good stuff. And in the very rare cases, mill 13 might even be relevant in limited. Okay, that's it for the Shadow cards. Let's take a look at my top 5 of Shadow in no particular order. So we have Sewer Sludge, like I said, amazing 1-drop. Back Alley Delinquent. I think this card deserves a spot in the top 5 just because of how great it is for the kind of decks that it goes into, like all kinds of reanimation and Scream decks, because this is a massive upgrade for these decks. I messed around already with Haunting Scream with 4 of these, and the guy is just incredibly good. Black Hole War Leader, premium 2-drop for Constructed, relevant unit type, can snowball, win the game on its own. Really good card. Karendan Merchant, like any merchant in the top 5 for the utility, and even one of the better merchants with the market options and the body. And I decided as 5th card I'll put in Marionette Cross, which is debatable. Maybe it should be the honorable mention and Call the Deck should be in the top 5, but Marionette Cross has a much bigger impact on the decks that it goes into, since it makes shadow heavy aggressive decks possible and is a really powerful turn 3 play, while Call the Deck I feel like is just a mediocre role player for very few decks, which is why I put it as an honorable mention, since it's definitely Constructed relevant, but not that great or that important in my opinion compared to Marionette Cross, which yeah, has a much higher impact on Constructed when it will see play. Okay, that's it for the top 5 Shadow. Now we are almost through the entire set. In the last video series I will talk about all the remaining cards, the multi-faction and factionless cards basically, and then we're done with the review and it's time to do the first deck techs. So hope you guys are excited for all that stuff to come soon, and if you enjoyed this and don't want to miss out on future stuff, please like these videos and subscribe to the channel to not miss out on the rest of the review and the future deck techs. And check out my social media and my stream over here to catch me live and catch all the latest updates on social media. And yeah, that's it again for today. This was Eternal Set review with the Shadow cards for the Fall of Argenport. I am Manues. I thank you for watching, and I see you next time with the multi-faction cards and factionless cards. Bye!